Good morning, Madam President and Senators. A very blessed new year and all God's best as we journey into this second day in the second month in 2026. I share to you today from yesterday's Old Testament lesson from Micah chapter 6. Have you and I really stopped and paused to ask, what does the Lord require from me as an individual and a leader? Micah 6 and 8 states, He has shown thee, O man, and I add woman, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? God has been and is so good to us as individuals and as the Bahamas. He has shown and been faithful to us through all the changing scenes and times of the existence of our nation. Do we as a people pause, count our blessings, and have a spirit of gratitude for all the wonderful things that has come our way? Psalms 145 and 9 states, The Lord is good to all, and his mercy is over all that he has made. Someone has said, gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. The challenge to you and I, senators, is this. God requires, firstly, justice. In all that you do and continue to do, senators, always be fair to all. Do not be known as a person who is impartial or who takes advantage of the weak, the uninformed, or the vulnerable. As you move into 2026, continue to be a person, even if others aren't doing it, who cultivates integrity and can be depended upon as a trustworthy leader. Isaiah 1 and 17 challenges each of us, and it says this, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. Secondly, God requires loving kindness. Some Bible versions refer to this as showing mercy. In 2026, continue senators to be known as leaders who are persons of compassion and are characterized as being kind. In all your daily interactions with others, be kind in your manner, your speech, and your behavior. Always be a person who respects and uplifts others. Philippians 2 and 3 states, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. And to quote the next person, they said this, treating others with respect speaks volumes about you. And finally, God requires that we walk humbly with him. It is important, senators, that all persons have a proper perspective of God and of how humanity relates to him. I challenge each of you, and myself included, to always remember that he is the creator and we are the created beings. It is easy as you excel and accomplish many things to allow pride and ego to seep in. Remember, ego is edging God out, and pride is a setup for a fall. In all that you do, always allow God to lead you. Surrender yourselves to his direction. He has opened these doors for you, and I always believe the best is yet to come. But know the following. Every day in 2026, spend time with God in meditation and quiet reflection, listening. Decide to live as he leads you. And remember, leadership is for a season, but God holds all of your life in his hand. I conclude with James 4 and 10. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for 2026 and all that is before us as a people and as a nation. Remind us to always keep you as the leader of our great nation and of our lives. Guide each senator in their daily lives and responsibilities. May each of them be men and women of justice, compassion, humility, and have an abiding faith in you. Bless their deliberations today and cover and protect them and their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, senators and members of the gallery, and welcome to the morning session of February 22nd, 2026. February 2nd, what did I say? Sorry, February 2nd, 2026, and welcome to the morning session. And it's a pleasure to see all of you here today. And I pray that God will continue to bless each of you and that you will have a brilliant 2026. As I go down the agenda for today's session, adoption of minutes. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate held on Thursday, 11th of December 2025 be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 11th of December 2025 be adopted. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of Thursday, the 11th of December 2025 are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, swearing in of new senators, communications by the president. As always, the chair extends heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to our devoted chaplain who has stayed with us for almost 5 years. We thank you for your expression of spiritual guidance, and I just want you to know that you are deeply appreciated by the Senate chamber. On today, the Senate commences debate on the important Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill. I wish to take this opportunity to extend immense appreciation to the past, current, and present members of the Bahamas Red Cross Society and all of the volunteers for your significant, selfless, and noble efforts in providing humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and health services and education. You have enriched and made the lives of thousands of Bahamians better by your global motivation to provide relief and lend a helping hand to those in need. And accordingly, I invited the members from the Red Cross Society to be in the gallery today as we debate this piece of legislation. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you who came from the Red Cross. And as I call your name, can you please stand? Firstly, the President, Edison Sumner. First Vice President, Kim Thurston. Alicia Pinder, Director General. Therese Curry, Immediate Past President. pausing because I want to make sure I get this name right. Nisifor Magdeni, Regional Head of IFRC. And IFRC stands for International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society. Sarah Brown, Coordinator, Humanitarian Diplomacy and Strategic Partnership, IFRC. Dr. Peter Maynard, KC, and Legal Advisor. Exana Domus, Operations and Training Manager, Bahamas Red Cross. Valerie McKenzie, Welfare Manager, BRCS. Judy Sweeting, Volunteer. Norma Cooper, CPR Trainer. Thank you all for braving the weather to be our special guests as we debate a bill that is of interest to not just you, but the entire Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It would be remiss of me if I did not take this opportunity to encourage individuals, churches, businesses, partnerships to give generously of your time and of your finances to the Bahamas Red Cross, which provide resources to Bahamians of all walks of life. And I also take this opportunity to extend the kind assistance of the Senate chamber, not just volunteering, but also financially. So I extend the opportunity for you to call upon any of our senators here, and we'd be more than happy and willing to assist you. Can I get a tap on the desk for that? We also welcome to the gallery a progressive Bahamian by the name of Ian Faulknotson. Can you please stand? He's a native from my hometown, South Andres. He is a young man who has pulled himself up by the bootstrap. He is the president of Long Beach Keys Investors, and they are the producers and the distributors of Family Island whiskey. Whiskey drinks, I understand, is a drink that if you sip it for the very first time, you're hooked. And these drinks bear a number of the Family Island names. And thank you so much, Senator. Let me hold it up. Thank you, Senator Barry Griffin. These drinks embody the rich heritage of Family Islands, and it's a featured drink of the major hotels and a featured vendor at Bahama Culinary and Arts Festival. They also won Best New Product at Paradise Place. And I hold on my hand the original whiskey, and it's my understanding that he has brought some samples for us senators. So I thank you for that, Mr. Ian Faulknotson. He's also a very good friend of mine, and we appreciate you coming to the gallery today to hear the debate, and we wish you much success and continued success with your beautiful brand, and we so appreciate you taking 242 to the world. Thank you so much. Did I miss anyone from the balcony? From the gallery, I should say? Okay, everyone is accounted for. But thank you all, and here ends the President's communication. May God continue to bless each of you senators and each member of the gallery, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas, number 53. Message to the Honorable President and Honorable Members of the Senate from the Speaker and Representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the
Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that honorable chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 21st January 2026. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker. Bahamas number 54. Message to the Honorable, the President, and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable, the Senate, that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiative Act, a bill for an act to establish the Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit to give effect in part to the Paris Agreement, including interagency coordination on climate matters, particularly climate finance, climate adaptation, loss and damage, carbon markets, action for climate empowerment, the advancement of climate policies, reports, and plans, and for connected purposes. House of Assembly, Nassau, 28 January 2026. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following: the miscellaneous written law rectification number 6, order 2025, the Industries Encouragement Approved Manufacturer Carib Botanicals order 2025, the Industries Encouragement Approved Product Wesley Brent Stirrup trading as Carib Botanicals order 2025, the miscellaneous written law rectification order 2026, the Supreme Court rules, the Supreme Court fees rules 2025, and the Price Control General Amendment number 11 regulations 2025.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following notices: the Smuggling of Migrants Act 2025, appointed day notice 2025, the National Health Insurance Act 2025, appointed day revocation notice 2025, the National Health Insurance Act 2025, appointed day notice number 2, 2025, the National Health Insurance Act 2025, appointed day number 3, notice 2025, the Public Holidays Boxing Day 2025, opening of shops notice 2025, the Public Holidays New Year's Day 2026, opening of shops notice 2025, the Register of Beneficial Ownership Amendment Act 2025, appointed day notice 2025, the Companies Amendment Number 2 Act 2025, appointed day notice 2026, the International Business Companies Amendment Act 2025, appointed day notice 2026, and the Non-Profit Organizations Amendment Act 2025, appointed day notice 2026.
Order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following directions: the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2028 Directions 2025, the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2029 Stock 2029, 2031, 2033, 2036, 2049, and 2054 Directions 2025, the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2029, 2031, 2033, 2036, 2049, and 2054 Directions 2025, and the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2029, 2031, 2032, 2036, 2048, and 2053 directions 2026.
Order documents be brought up. Order the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answer to questions. Presentation of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Hall Ketis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to move for second reading and committal of the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025. And before I do so, Madam President, I would join you in welcoming the executives and membership of the Bahamas Red Cross Society to the gallery, and as well to welcome those members of the International Red Cross Society who have visited us from abroad. Welcome, and as the President said, thank you for braving this little bit of chilly weather to be with us here today. Madam President, the objects and reasons of this bill very, very succinctly encapsulate and summarize the reason that we are here today. And I will read from it before I make some other comments on the bill. But in the objects and reasons section of the bill, it says, this bill seeks to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act, number 389, to provide immunities and privileges for the Bahamas Red Cross Society and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. It goes on, in 1919, the League of Red Cross Societies was established in Paris. Emerging from the ruins of World War I, 5 founding National Red Cross Societies from France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, and the United States launched the idea that compassion and expertise demonstrated during wartime could also be shown during peacetime. In 1983, the League of Red Cross Societies changed its name to the League of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. In 1991, it became the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and this federation is the world's largest humanitarian organization, providing aid without discrimination based on nationality, race, religion, class, or political beliefs. It includes 191 member Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies, a secretariat in Geneva, and over 60 delegations strategically located around the world to support humanitarian efforts. The Federation's work centers on 4 main areas: promoting humanitarian values, disaster response, disaster preparedness, and health and community care. Its main strength is the extensive network of national societies covering nearly every country, and collaboration amongst these societies enhances the Federation's ability to build capacity and assist those most in need. And locally, this network enables the Federation to connect with individual communities. The Geneva-based Secretariat's role is to coordinate and mobilize relief efforts for international emergencies, foster cooperation amongst national societies, and represent them internationally. Field delegations support and advise national societies on relief operations and development programs and promote regional cooperation. Together with national societies and the International Committee of the Red Cross, the Federation forms the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. That, Madam President, is a summary, I believe, of the functions of the Red Cross, and I must say, one of the most complete and comprehensive objects and reasons clauses that we have seen in bills that we debate here. Madam President, more than a century and a half ago, on a battlefield near the town of Solferino in Italy, in 1859, thousands of wounded soldiers lay without care, and there was no triage, no supplies, no system. A young Swiss businessman named Henry Dunant stumbled upon this scene and refused to turn away. He organized villagers with a simple call: all are brothers. From that moment of shared compassion came a powerful idea that wherever suffering is found, organized humanity can and must respond. From that spark, the International Red Cross movement was born. Dunant's account of Solferino inspired the founding of the International Committee of the Red Cross in Geneva in 1863 and helped shape the first Geneva Convention. And from there, the world's largest humanitarian network grew. This network is guided by 7 fundamental principles that are as relevant today as they were at their inception. They are humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, and universality, all inclusive. These principles, Madam President, are not slogans. They are the bedrock of trust. They allow the Red Cross volunteers to knock on any door after a storm and be welcomed, to cross front lines or flood lines and be respected, to serve without fear or favor, and to be believed when they say, "We are here to help." The Bahamas found its home in this global family early on. Our Red Cross story began in 1939 when a branch of the British Red Cross was established to support both the wartime effort and local social welfare needs. Over time, the Bahamas Red Cross Society became woven into our national life, training first responders, supporting families, providing basic health care support, teaching life-saving skills, and building community resilience one neighborhood at a time. In 1975, the Bahamas Red Cross Society was recognized as our own national society through an act of Parliament. And in the decades since, the Bahamas Red Cross has been there in our darkest hours and to help fulfill our daily needs. And after hurricanes, Dorian, we remember with particular horror, the Society mobilized volunteers and supplies, delivered food and water, supported shelter operations, and brought dignity back to families who had lost virtually everything. Between disasters, programs like Meals on Wheels, youth engagement, and community training have provided steady, quiet support to the most vulnerable amongst us. It has never been just about relief. It is about resilience and helping our communities prepare, withstand, and recover stronger. In order to keep serving effectively, our laws and systems must keep pace with our realities. And this is why the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025 is so important. And this amendment, firstly, recognizing that during national emergencies, time is critical, and lost time can literally save lives. The amended framework helps the Red Cross deliver aid faster by cutting unnecessary bottlenecks. It strengthens the society's ability to move supplies, mobilize volunteers, and coordinate with authorities so that assistance reaches people in need without delay. Secondly, it reinforces the protection of the Red Cross's emblem, of the Red Cross emblem. That red cross on a white background is not a brand. It is a shield. It is a promise that the person wearing it or the vehicle bearing it is acting solely for humanitarian purposes. Misuse endangers responders and communities alike. By sharpening legal protections, the law safeguards that the neutrality and trust that allow Red Cross teams to work in tense, complex situations. Thirdly, Madam President, it modernizes governance. The Red Cross belongs to the people it serves, and stronger oversight and accountability are essential to preserving that trust. By updating structures and processes, the amendment supports transparent leadership, responsible stewardship, and effective decision-making for the years ahead. These changes, Madam President, arrive at a pivotal moment. Climate change is not a future problem for the Bahamas. It is our daily weather, and we are experiencing it over the last couple of days. It is cold outside. Stronger hurricanes, rising seas, heat stress, and I might add cold stress, are already reshaping how we live, work, and prepare. The Bahamas Red Cross Society's strategic plan to 2030 is built for this reality, investing in climate resilience, digital transformation, and community-based preparedness, strengthening local volunteer networks, and empowering youth to lead the next chapter of humanitarian service. And Madam President, this is what resilience looks like: an elderly neighbor who knows how to secure her home and access medication ahead of a storm, a family with a go bag and a plan, a youth volunteer trained in first aid and psychosocial support, a shelter that is stocked, accessible, and safe, a logistics system that delivers clean water where it is needed most, and a legal framework that smooths the way rather than slows it down. Picture this, Madam President. The morning after a hurricane, roads are blocked, communications are down. The Red Cross team arrives. They carry tarps, hygiene kits, and water. They check on housebound elders. They coordinate with local authorities. They listen. They listen to trauma, to loss, and to hope. That scene is not a miracle or just happens just so, Madam President. It is a result of training, planning, volunteers stepping up, and laws that are clear and that provide a clear path for urgent action. And that is what this amendment supports. And that is what the 2030 strategic plan fuels. Madam President, a plan and a law are only as strong as the people who bring them to life. And so I invite all Bahamians, if you can volunteer, the Red Cross needs your hands and your heart. If you can donate, your generosity turns into meals, shelter supplies, and training. If you're a business leader, partner with the Red Cross to pre-position goods, bolster communications, and strengthen supply chains. We as policymakers are invited to continue to support frameworks that protect the emblem, reduce disaster risk, and speed aid to those who need it most. And if you are a parent, teacher, or a mentor, encourage the young people in your life to learn first aid, join youth programs, and lead with compassion. Above all, Madam President, respect the emblem, respect the mission, and respect each other. The Bahamas Red Cross does not replace community. It amplifies it. It does not wait for perfect condition. It acts so that conditions can improve. And it does not ask who you are or where you're from. It asks simply, how can we help? So, Madam President, from Solferino to Nassau, from Geneva to Grand Bahama, the thread is unbroken, a belief that in the face of suffering, organized humanity can transform outcomes. The International Red Cross began as a response to unimaginable pain. Today in the Bahamas, that legacy lives on in a modern society equipped with better tools, stronger protections, and a clear plan for the future. And so as I conclude, Madam President, the Red Cross, including the Bahamas Red Cross, is in many ways the conscience of the world. In the Bahamas, that conscience beats close to home in our shelters, our schools, our clinics, and our streets. Because when the waters rise and the winds pick up, and when the quiet needs of daily life grow more urgent, the question remains, will we help? And so today, Madam President, with compassion, preparation, and law on our side, the answer must be yes. And so therefore, Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025.
Thank you, Senator Halkitis, for your contribution. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, honorable senators. Good morning, Bahamas. I too would like to take this opportunity to welcome our esteemed guest this morning. There's no question that where I am from, that is Grand Bahama, the Red Cross down there has done a human's work. I will share a little bit more in my presentation, but I thank you for your service. Welcome to the Senate, and continue to do all that you can to continue to serve our great country. Before I begin, Madam President, I must, like the previous speaker, say to all listening to my voice this morning, it would be good if more of us in this country would take the opportunity to volunteer and serve in the capacity of a Red Cross volunteer. And so today is another day that the Lord himself has made. I am glad to be a part of it. And so I give thanks to my beautiful wife and family who continue to support me in all my endeavors. Madam President, I would be remiss today if I did not give a shout out to the hardest group of government employees in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm talking about my team down there in Grand Bahama in urban renewal, who continues to go above and beyond the call of duty, and not for self-praise, but to simply provide compassionate relief to those in need. I'm proud of their efforts, and I say a big thank you. And I say to them, their reward is secured in God's hands. Madam President, while I'm extending compliments, allow me to extend applause to Prime Minister Davis for successfully completing the ratification of all 39 of his candidates who will contest the various seats in the upcoming general election. Rest assured that I will do all that I can to ensure that this compassionate people first, workers first, Bahamian first administration returns to government. Honorable President, honorable colleagues, soldier, behave yourself. Madam President, honorable colleagues, I rise today to second this Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025, a piece of legislation that modernizes and strengthens the legal framework governing one of the most trusted humanitarian institutions in our country and indeed the world. The bill seeks to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act 385 to provide immunities and privileges for the Bahamas Red Cross Society and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. As previously stated, in 1919, the League of Red Cross Society was established in Paris, emerging from the ruins of World War I. 5 founding National Red Cross Society from France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, and the United States launched the idea that the compassion and expertise demonstrated during wartime could be a great asset during peacetime. Today, the Red Cross and Red Crescent Society are the world's largest humanitarian organizations, providing aid without discrimination based on nationality, race, religion, class, or political beliefs. The foundation work centers on 4 main areas: promoting humanitarian values, disaster response, disaster preparedness, and health and community care. Madam President, the Bahamas Red Cross Society has long been at the forefront of the disaster preparedness and response, humanitarian relief, and community support, working alongside government agencies, international partners, and volunteers to bring hope and help when it is needed most throughout our country. In Grand Bahama, we've worked with leaders like Mary Coleman, Andrew Sweeting, Lisa Turnquest, Rinaldi Forbes, just to name a few. This bill ensures that the society is properly equipped legally, institutionally, and operationally to continue its vital work in a rapidly changing and increasingly hazardous environment. Madam President, the objective of this amendment bill are clear: to modernize the existing legislation governing the Bahamas Red Cross Society, to strengthen governance, accountability, and operational clarity, and to align national law with international humanitarian standards and obligations. This is a measured and responsible improvement, one that reflects current realities and best practices. Madam President, allow me to speak briefly from lived experience. Those of us living in Grand Bahama would agree that we are sitting squarely in what can be only classified as Hurricane Alley. Within a 3-year span, the island endured 2, not 1, 2 Category 5 hurricanes: Hurricane Matthew in 2016 and Hurricane Dorian in 2019. These are events that reshaped communities, crippled essential services, displaced families, and not only tested, but overwhelmed every aspect of our national response capacity, from healthcare, power, housing, food, water, commerce, and infrastructure. But these were not isolated incidents. Going back to 2004, Grand Bahama has been impacted by multiple major storms, many of which required international humanitarian response, including the direct engagement of the Bahamas Red Cross Society and its global partners. These experiences have taught us a few hard but necessary lessons. One, climate change is real. And in that regard, I commend Prime Minister Davis for his principled leadership on the international stage, boldly advancing climate justice and demanding accountability and compensation from those who contribute most to global pollution. The Bahamas is well served by Prime Minister's global advocacy on climate change, and as he continues to elevate our concerns as well as those of other island states and press major polluters to accept responsibility. Prime Minister Davis deserves commendation for his unwavering leadership in championing climate action and fair compensation for vulnerable nations bearing the brunt of pollution they themselves did not cause. And secondly, disasters are no longer occasional. Rather, they are occurring more frequent and more powerful. This simply means our institutions must be legally and structurally prepared to respond without delay. This amendment bill is therefore not about some drummed up theory. It is grounded in the very real experience of Bahamians who have depended on the Red Cross for shelter, food, medical support, and dignity in moments of crisis. Madam President, Senate colleagues, the bill introduces important enhancements. It clarifies the legal status and humanitarian mandate of the Bahamas Red Cross Society. It strengthens governance and leadership structures, promoting transparency and accountability. It aligns our national framework with international Red Cross and Red Crescent standards, ensuring seamless coordination, especially during large-scale emergencies. It modernizes provision to reflect contemporary disaster preparedness, response, and recovery needs. These changes ensure that when the next disaster strikes, and I'm not putting mouth on us as the old people would say, but like the 5 wise virgins, experience tells us that disasters will occur, and we must be ready and prepared to respond. And these changes we are making today ensures that the Bahamas Red Cross Society can act swiftly, credibly, and effectively. Madam President, strengthening the legal framework of the Bahamas Red Cross Society is an investment in national resilience. It is also an affirmation of public trust placed in an organization that relies heavily on both local as well as international volunteers, donors, and community confidence to carry out its humanitarian mission. This bill reinforces that trust by embedding principle of good governance, accountability, and professionalism. Madam President, the Bahamas Red Cross Society embodies the spirit of compassion and solidarity that defines us as a people. In light of our vulnerability to natural disasters, particularly in my home of Grand Bahama and our neighbors in the Arbor Coast, this amendment bill ensures that the society remains strong, credible, and ready to serve. I therefore commend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2005 to this honorable House, to this honorable Senate, and urge its full support. Madam President, I beg your indulgence to briefly speak in support of the recent communications update by Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, during his recent cabinet meeting held on Grand Bahama regarding the government's strategic and forward-looking plans aimed at accelerating the already in motion revitalization and growth of the Grand Bahamas economy. Madam President, this update underscores a clear vision for the island's future, one that focuses on modern infrastructure, economic opportunities for all and sundry, and sustainable community development. The government's approach is intentional, comprehensive, and responsive to both the realities and the potential of Grand Bahama. First, let's look at the Grand Bahama International Airport. The Prime Minister confirmed the mobilization of Polycon, the construction company responsible for carrying out works at the Grand Bahama International Airport. He announced that Polycon has engaged Bahamas Hot Mix to commence on-site preparation work, and that work is scheduled to begin immediately. Madam President, this marks an important transition in this Herculean task. Phase one of the redevelopment of the Grand Bahama International Airport has moved from planning to physical groundwork, with construction now underway. Prime Minister said that this phase is supported by a capital investment of over $100 million, and it will deliver a modern terminal capable of accommodating 500,000 passengers annually, with the capacity to expand to 1 million. It also includes a new international terminal with U.S. pre-clearance, expanded taxiways and apron space, upgraded roadways and parking. It was heartwarming to hear that significant environmental and flood mitigation designs are features in the design so as to build long-term resilience into the facility. Madam President, we want the people of Grand Bahama to truly understand that this project is not merely about infrastructure. It's about connectivity, opportunities, and the growth of our island. This modern airport is essential to support expanded airlift, movement of cargo, increased visitor arrival, and strengthen the island's integration into a global travel network. Madam President, on the port and harbor sector, the Prime Minister highlighted a landmark private sector investment with MSC Cruises, which is commencing development of a new cruise port ship pier complex at what is named Billy Key at Freeport Harbor. This multi-user facility, with an estimated $450 million investment, includes new berths, a welcome plaza, retail, food and beverage spaces, an entertainment mecca, and transportation staging zone, all designed to create a first-class experience, boost visitor flow, as well as to expand opportunities for local businesses and entrepreneurs. Madam President, added to the recently opened Celebration Key, Grand Bahama will be positioned as a competitive cruise destination. The alarm has been sounded. It is time to wake up, Grand Bahama. Wake up from your sleep. Your time has come. But I'm not finished, Madam President. When you take into consideration these two ports, the $500 million expansion taking place at the Grand Bahama Shipyard, the Freeport Container Port that have improved efficiency and capacity for industrial activity, and the other upgrades taking place throughout Grand Bahama marine industry and maritime industry, Grand Bahama ought to know that these developments are all integrated into a broader vision by the brave administration for Grand Bahama to become the most serious player in the maritime and logistic business throughout the Caribbean and indeed the region. That is what good governance looks like, Bahamas. Madam President, from the very start of this administration term, this brave administration made one position very clear, that no one on this side was prepared to accept the status quo of Grand Bahama. We will not accept the status quo as it relates to energy, not as it relates to governance, not as it relates to expanding the economy, not as it relates to reducing crime, not as it relates to improving health care, not as it relates to creating opportunities for Grand Bahamians to come back home. And yes, this administration is expanding all the above without placing unnecessary taxes and burdens on the Bahamian families and businesses. As a matter of fact, we have reduced taxes and increased minimum wage, conducted widespread promotion across the public sector while completing more than 50 industrial agreements improving thousands of workers' terms and conditions. Madam President, I want to end this by congratulating Prime Minister Davis, who boldly announced the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the government of the Bahamas and Emera Incorporated concerning the government of the Bahamas' quest to acquire and control the Grand Bahama Power Company. This is important because for the first time we can move to universal electricity rates across the Bahamas, ending the long-standing disparity between Grand Bahama and the rest of the country. Prime Minister Davis said that energy reform is one of the most important pillars of this administration work because lower energy costs means lower cost of living. It means more competitive businesses. It means a stronger foundation for investments, job creation, and long-term growth in Grand Bahama and across the country. This memorandum of understanding is progressive. It is this administration working in the public's interest. It demonstrates compassion, and most of all, it demonstrates love for people who have been waiting for their time to come. To my friends on the opposite, this is indeed the people's time and a new day for Grand Bahama. Madam President, these specific actions demonstrate the government commitment to rescuing, recovering, and revitalizing the economy of Grand Bahama through investment, innovation, and engagement. The government is not merely planning for the future, it is building it, and building it now with the kind of investment that will expand opportunities, restore confidence, create decent jobs, protect workers, and most of all, uplift families, allowing them to live out the Bahamian dream. Madam President, I commend these facts from the Prime Minister's update to the Honorable Senate, and I reaffirm my full support for this administration. All these and the other $3+ billion in investment that are already offering hope and inspiring the young generation will secure prosperity for the island of Grand Bahama and all Bahamians alike. I thank you, Madam President. I support this Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025. May God continue to bless the effort of this administration, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, for your contribution. It has been, Hannah, you're supposed to be on your job. Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, for your contribution. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you,
Senator
Madam
Henfield,
President.
you have the floor.
Madam President, if you look at my notes, you'd find, although we're discussing the Red Cross today, as we say in political vernacular, you'd find no red meat within my notes because, firstly, when I came on and I saw my distinguished tutor, Dr. Maynard, I thought to myself, you must be on your best behavior today. A man whom I love and respect highly. And then my brother from Grand Bahama. Then my brother from Grand Bahama gets up in this place and determines to sing the praises of his prime minister. My prime minister too. Of our prime minister. Let me fix that. And he talks about how our prime minister has been so good for Grand Bahama. And we know that's not true. I can't use the word that is in this place because that would be unparliamentary. You know, you talk about an airport that has been lying in waste.
Not in front of gas.
Lying in waste for. I was very quiet in here today. I didn't utter a word, Madam President, in here today, right? I sat right here and I took it in and I listened. And I want to commend my brother, the Honorable Senator Michael Halkitis, for a very good, sound presentation on what the Red Cross is and has been in our country. But he talks about an airport in Grand Bahama that has lied in waste for the past 4 years plus. Nothing happened. People still coming in through that other place there. Man, you had a fella going on there but 3 times until he started building the airport. And then the Prime Minister removed him and took it over himself. You know who the fella is. If I point you, listen, you know who it is. You live in Grand Bahama. Then he talks about Emera. But the government acquiring Emera, which is the power company in Grand Bahama. Why you buying a power company and you selling one? What business you want to be in? You want to be in the power business or what? Or what? You done sell BPL. You done sell BPL. But you want to buy another power company? Madam President, you can protect me in here or what? Huh? Yes, ma'am. I'm talking to you. You can protect me in here or what? There's a lot
Order.
of heckling in here.
Order.
Heckling in here.
Senator, order.
Madam President.
Senator Handfield has the floor. Senator Handfield, can you please speak to the chair?
President,
Speak to the chair.
Madam
Thank you.
President, this government cannot manage BPL, so they're selling it. Among other reasons why they're selling it. The wind blew hard night before last, and the power went off for hours. It's a good thing it was cool. It was a good thing it was cool in the country, so you didn't have much agitation about that, right? You flew down to Grand Bahama, had a big thing with the hotel, Alukaya. Open up.
Order.
Bunch of people.
Senators.
You flew down there to say you restart in Alukaya. You know Alukaya well. You used to be.
Order. Senator Handfield, please speak to the chair.
I remember seeing you there. Yes, Madam President. I remember seeing you at Alukaya. I remember seeing you at Alukaya. No. Let me look at my friend right there now. I remember seeing you at Alukaya, and you know it well. And it's all about smoke and mirrors. Broke down a whole window. Next day or next evening, you had the fella there patching up in the back up. Man, y'all ain't serious. Y'all ain't serious. You know, as a union man, I expect you to stand up for the people who are fighting. Right? You signed an agreement unprecedented, never before done. By Sir Lyndon, by Ingram, by Christie, 58. And I was Mr. Ronald folks in there. Yeah. You signed 58 agreements, that's what you say. And you hardly honored one of them. Every union in this country on strike, or about to go on strike, or has been on strike, right? Some now coming to you right now. Give me my friend. Give me an opportunity second here, right? Go pay the nurses. Yeah, but you've been in the government for the past 4 years. Go pay the nurses. Stop talking about what we do. Go pay the nurses, man. Go pay the nurses, man. Pay them their overtime. We need to keep them in the country. That's why they go into Canada and Europe and the United States and those places, because we don't treat them right. None of us have treated them properly. None of us. Go pay them. Go pay them. Now, yeah, best leave me alone, right? Now, this, Madam President, this is a red letter day in the Senate. And had I known, I would have written you and asked to wear my red tie. Because we debate a bill that is past due being debated in this place, and that is very much needed. And I want to recognize my friend and brother, President Edison Sumner, and his most able Vice President, Mrs. Thurston, Dr. Maynard, whom I just spoke of. I absolutely have to recognize him. Those of you who've come from the international community, past President Curry, one of my favorite persons in the whole wide world, right? And all of you who are here, with the Red Cross. Madam President, Edison Sumner and his notable team of executives of the Bahamas Red Cross Society and all those upon whose shoulder they stand to date have brought their organization to this point in our country, and they are to be commended for achieving the objective for which we have gathered here today. The Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025, which amends the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act, Chapter 389, will formalize the legal status of the Red Cross Society and the Federation in the Bahamas in pursuance of an agreement entered into by the government of the Bahamas on the 20th of September 2022. In the results, the organization will be imbued with privileges, the privileges and immunities set out in the mentioned agreement, and between the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas as per Clause 3 of the bill. Madam President, specifically, Section 3 or Clause 3 of the Principal Act, Section 3 of the Principal Act is amended by the insertion immediately after subsection 2 of the following as new subsections 3 and 4 to read as follows. 3, the Federation shall be granted immunities and privileges pursuant to the agreement between the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and the International Federation of Red Cross, and for the Red Crescent Societies concerning legal status of the International Federation and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas signed on the 20th of September 2022, and as an organization in accordance with the International Organizations Immunities and Privileges Act, Chapter 14. Without Clause 4, without prejudice to subsection 2, the society shall have the same immunities and privileges as an organization under the International Organizations Immunities and Privileges Act, Chapter 14. This, in plain and simple terms, Madam President, means that special legal protections and exemptions which are normally granted to diplomats or international organizations like the United Nations to ensure that they can function effectively in the role for which they were formed without interference from local laws and authorities will now be enjoyed by the Red Cross in the Bahamas. It should be noted, Dr. Maynard, that Stowe's Diplomatic Practice, 6th edition at page 292, points out that international law regarding the privileges and immunities of international organizations is an entirely modern development. Madam President, the objective here then is for the Red Cross to have the flexibility in achieving its 4 main goals of promoting humanitarian values, disaster response, disaster preparedness, and health and community care. Diplomatic immunity for state representatives generally provides a broader, more absolute personal immunity to facilitate their sovereign functions as they do their work in other territories. While immunity for international organizations such as the Red Cross officials is typically functional only for official acts and limited to the organization itself. So these immunities and privileges should allow you to be able to function with more flexibility, to allow you to respond in a manner that you should be able to in the event or aftermath of a catastrophic event such as we saw in Dorian. I found myself as a foreign minister in Dorian having to call technocrats at the airport, begging them to land planes that wanted to bring in aid for our people. And sometimes I had to call the minister responsible at the time, Dionisio Diagla, and say, listen, man, let's get rid of these red tape, all this red tape. We have people suffering, and they need immediate help. You probably found yourself in a similar position, doing some of the same things. And so I digress a bit, but what I determined to do in my capacity was to say to our friends and neighbors in the United States, United Kingdom, and Europe, and elsewhere, who would come to help us, I will not wait until after the storm has landed to give you permission to enter the Bahamas. I will give you that permission beforehand so that if perchance all of our communications were disrupted and we could not get messages to you, you could come and perform the aid and assistance that we so much needed at the time. And so the Red Cross needs this flexibility to avoid having to go through all of the red tapes, the red tape and roadblocks that you find in your way as you try to assist and help our people. Not before in our history have we seen the benefits and dexterity of the Red Cross as seen in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian and during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's personal to me because as an Abaconian and a representative of North Abaco, I saw firsthand what you are and the essence of what your existence have cost you to be to so many people, not only in our country, but around the world. The organization's efforts following Dorian in 2019, which included, but were not limited to, direct cash assistance, to see lines of people getting monies in their hands from the Red Cross was very encouraging. Housing repairs, that people could immediately move back into homes that were not so severely damaged or destroyed. Food security, everybody needed food. It was difficult to get that done. Strengthening infrastructure to the tune of more than $14 million in cash. And distributing cash to households, not only households, but also the businesses. A lot of people after Dorian, I believe, were traumatized. I know I was. I didn't sleep for 8 days. Because as a former military officer, I flew home to Abaco because I knew a little bit about disaster management and response. And I believe in time, history will record what we were able to do. I don't believe in singing my own praises. That's for somebody else to do, or however they choose to see what happened. But the government of the Bahamas, of which I was very proudly a part, Brother Russell, never sent home any public servants in the face of Dorian and COVID. And did what the Red Cross did, and that's what caused me to remember this. Supported businesses that were involved in tourism so that Bahamians would not have to join those lines that that made Bahamians so very angry, right? So businesses that were involved in tourism be supported financially, so they keep people employed and keep Bahamians off these lines. Madam President, despite our administration's best efforts to provide for the livelihood and safety of Bahamians and others on our shores during the pandemic, our initiatives would have been much more difficult without the partnership of the Red Cross and other international partners during the pandemic. You all need to go, I'm going to look at Mike, at Senator Alquitas, I'm sorry. You all need to go and apologize to that organization that was formed to help people in the Bahamas, feed them, whom you came into this place and assailed. Whom you assailed for no reason. And you know what it does? It causes people who want to help to say, you know what, I don't need this headache. And thank God the Red Cross ain't gonna do that. The Red Cross ain't gonna do that. Right? The Red Cross, Madam President, as I said, our initiatives would have been much more difficult without the partnership of the Red Cross and partners like them during the pandemic. Now, we have quite a few partners in the Bahamas who help the government and others to support Bahamians. Y'all listen to support Bahamians, and we should. You know better, Professor. You know better. People who daily feed Bahamians like you do in the Red Cross. Your Meals on Wheels. You know, when I think about Bishop Hansel and the man we affectionately call the singing prophet. Have you ever gone down there and watched him cook in that big cauldron? The big cauldron that he cooks in, he cooks up food and people come. You know, and I believe as governments we should do all that we can to support initiatives and efforts like this that would help feed Bahamians who find themselves down on their luck, right, in a hard or difficult place. The Red Cross adjusted their mission to address the associated challenges of COVID-19 6 months after the passage of Hurricane Dorian, to include the implementation of contactless delivery of food and supplies and initiatives for remote casework for financial aid. The institution also expanded its Meals on Wheels program to deliver hot meals daily to the elderly, the disabled, and those in financial crisis due to the pandemic. It is also worth noting that the Red Cross also funded home repairs whilst providing millions in cash to countless families for food and rental assistance. As a result, the Red Cross and several other organizations, both local and international, provided untold relief for our vulnerable populations. And for this, we are all no doubt grateful for their presence in our country since 1939 to the present date. And I have done so before, but I take this opportunity again, President Sumner, to thank you and the International Red Cross and your Federation, the Red Crescent, and the rest of you for all of the help that you have given our people in this country and continue to give them. That's a good place right there, Ruben. Madam President, we can't talk about the Red Cross and not mention their life-saving training programs that they have conducted throughout the years. These include certified expert-led training programs focused on emergency response, their CPR and AED and first aid courses for individuals and workplaces, have no doubt saved many lives across our country over the years. For these reasons and more, in our last administration, I worked very hard with Christine Lightbourne and Lauren Rivera to to locate, identify a good acreage of land for the Red Cross to establish a headquarters of sorts in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, because it is needed there. And we want your presence to be felt there. I don't think I can need you in South Beach, because you're pretty close here, right there where you are. So continue to work on what we're doing in Abaco with that land. Continue to establish your headquarters. I'm sure you're going to do it. I know you have ambitious and good objectives for this development in Abaco. And so we look forward to see what you do with that. Your lifeguard training in our maritime nation has been outstanding. I'd like to see it expanded. I remember, as a young Marine, we used to send our young recruits and others in the training area to learn CPR and life-saving drills and those kind of things from the Red Cross. You've led in that regard. And so, for these reasons, we support and commend this bill, which helps the Red Cross to function in a much more better fashion. In a much more better fashion to assist and help and aid our people in need in the Bahamas. And again, I commend you all for the work that you do. And I thank you very much, Madam President. With that, I rest. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Darren Hentfield. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Diacente Benaby Small.
The chairman for the Golden Gates Constituency Association at the time, and later for the Bamboo Town Constituency Association as well. And she was quite a woman, resilient, strong, and attended the government high school on scholarship. And she earned an associate's degree eventually from the College of the Bahamas, and later completed both a bachelor's and master's degrees in business administration at the University of Miami. And what is so impressive is her tenacity, because she started a professional journey in the offshore banking industry and began in the 70s as a secretary. And of course, as she retired in 2001, she was a vice president at the time. And so that tells you a little bit about who she is. And not just that, she did have a mind of her own. So interestingly, although she was an MCM in the Free National Movement, her father was a PLP stalwart and actually hosted and organized meetings with Brave Davis, the father of the current prime minister, back in the day. But Anna Colebrook, MCM Anna Colebrook, she always shared with conviction that once Sir Cecil made his famous speech in 1971, she crossed the floor, even though, like I said, her father was a PLP stalwart. And so she remained active in the FNM for decades, and like I said, rising to the highest rank. And so last week at headquarters, each time you go to headquarters to say goodbye to someone, it really reminds you that many people who've laid the foundation and who have built the organization are moving on. But of course, there's always fresh new blood because it's a movement, and that's what keeps us alive and moving forward. Madam President, it's Heart Month, and I want to encourage everybody to stay healthy, to support the Heart Foundation and the Sir Victor Sassoon Bahamas Heart Foundation and the Heart Association, because we know that cardiac challenges plague us as a nation. And so as the senator before me would have said, let's do our part to eat right, to stay fit, and to do what we can to combat these such diseases. Madam President, I too would like to welcome and acknowledge the visitors here with us today. The President of the Bahamas Red Cross Society, Mr. Edison Sumner, the First Vice, Mrs. Kim Thurston, and the immediate past President, Therese Curry, of course, the regional head of IFRC, and all of the other persons from IFRC who were with us the consultant, Dr. Peter Maynard, Casey, the legal advisor, and most importantly, Madam President, after calling the names of all of those big honchos, they would say, I want to acknowledge the people who are in the fight daily. And I know the job of the president and vice president and the others are, hard jobs to do. And I see what you do. You do a mammoth task. But I really want to send a special welcome out to the Director General, Alicia Pinder, and to the welfare manager, the operations and training manager, Judy Sweeting, the volunteer, Norma Cooper, the CPR trainer, because yes, the president is important, the vice president is important. Just as in corporate organizations, the chairman of the board, they're all important. But it's those people who show up to work every day and get it done. Those people who are there early and leave late. They may not be in all the photo ops. People may not even be able to name the director general and the volunteers and who does the CPR training. They know some of those. But those are the people who are tirelessly working behind the scenes day after day after day. And so special welcome to all of you. I'm happy to have you here. And I'm very happy and proud to be a part of this landmark legislation. Like my leader of opposition business said, it's a red letter day indeed. And so, Madam President, I am proud and I am humbled. I'm proud of the Red Cross, an organization that has stood shoulder to shoulder with us in our times of crisis, as we've noted, but also in times of calm. That's every single day. And I'm humbled because, like we say in our culture, you ain't past nothing till you're dead, Madam President. And even though we may not personally feel the impact of the Red Cross in our own lives, we never know what we can come to and when we might be reaching out to them for support, when it might be helpful to have their number, when I might have to make that call because I myself am distressed. And so I'm humbled, Madam President, because I know the Red Cross, just like other NGOs, and of course we know it's more than just an NGO, our country would not be thriving on any level, and it would be far more vulnerable without the Red Cross. So I'm really happy to be a part of this important passage of legislation, Madam President, the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025, because this particular bill, Madam President, is about lives. It is about people. It is about the future of our nation, and so it's really my kind of bill. And as opposition, we are committed, of course, to the advancement of this nation. And so, yes, Madam President, we do scrutinize, we question, but when the government does something for the greater good, we stand with it, and we stand by the government. And so supporting this bill isn't about politics. It's about protecting our people. It is about ensuring that when the next storm comes, and like you say, we don't want it to come. It's better to be prepared. It's better to be prepared and it doesn't come than not to be prepared and it catches us with our pants down, our proverbial pants down. And so whenever the next crisis arises, we want to make sure that our nation is ready. And so we thank the Red Cross because they're an indispensable partner in nation building. And Madam President, when we think of the Red Cross, of course, it's natural. We think of hurricanes, we think of floods, we think of fires, and yes, when disaster strikes, like I said, they're there. They're the first there. But their work goes far beyond that, Madam President. It extends to everyday life. We talk about their Meals on Wheels program, 200 meals a day, Madam President. Before we even have lunch, the elderly, persons with disabilities, and the immobile on New Providence and Grand Bahama, and they're hoping to expand to other family islands, which I hope to see soon. They're fed a meal, Madam President, and we take that for granted. You look at young children nowadays, they privileged, they're entitled, they don't even want what you cook. They feel like eating this, they feel like eating that, and parents find themselves on drive-thrus, or some people craving stuff with delivery, or, well, I should say food delivery, stuff with the delivery, possibly causing as much as the meal, but that's not everybody's reality in this country. It's not. Some people are waiting for that Meals on Wheels bus to pull up so that they can have the meal, the only meal they might have that day, Madam President. And so I am grateful for the work of the Red Cross because we take it for granted. Because our colleagues ask, what for lunch? What you ordering? What you getting? What you going? I want sandwich you. No. Some people Meals on Wheels is their food delivery. You know, last I run an ad for any company, but that's their orange shirt to the door. When Meals on Wheels show up, that's their food for the day, and so we're grateful to the Red Cross. We take it for granted because we walk around every day, and until someone we know puts out a flyer because they need blood, we don't think about the fact that our hospitals use blood all the time to help patients. And we don't think about it because the Red Cross runs blood drives, and they help to make sure that the hospitals have the life-saving supplies they need. We don't think about it until we need blood or someone we know needs blood. But this isn't an afterthought or a convenient thought or a thought based on proximity or preference or whether you know somebody. This is an everyday thought for the Bahamas Red Cross Society, Madam President. First aid and CPR training, ordinary citizens, they empower. Because the reality is, if something happens, regrettably, a doctor or nurse might not be within a couple feet of the emergency. But an ordinary person might be there. Whether that's a phys ed coach at a school across our Commonwealth, whether that's a teacher, whether that's someone in a corporate space, whether that's a parent or a preschool teacher, whoever it is. But these are the people that the Red Cross, they train every day in, day out. And yes, they do provide humanitarian support after fires, after brush fires, other localized emergencies. Because sometimes we only think of an emergency, or we might think of a hurricane, but there's so many emergencies that can happen at any time, at sea, anywhere. And that is why the Red Cross is here. They have youth programs that teach resilience early on and preparedness in schools. So our children, our students can understand the importance of the Red Cross, can understand the importance of these things. And so whatever daily social welfare support they give, outreach to vulnerable groupings and communities, sometimes even legal migrant families living in our country, the children might not even see a movie unless the Red Cross puts together a community event targeting that population. And so, Madam President, the Red Cross is not merely an NGO. By law, it is the auxiliary to the government of the Bahamas, and in every hurricane, every community crisis, and every major emergency, the Red Cross is the government's first partner. And so it's not just about disaster response. It's really about nation building that touches Bahamian lives daily. And just so everybody understands, the work of the Red Cross, what the Red Cross does, is grounded firmly in the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949, which is really the cornerstone of modern humanitarian law. And at the heart of these objects, Madam President, is non-discrimination, which is close to my heart. Okay, and so the Red Cross must provide aid impartially, without distinction of nationality or race, religious belief, political opinions, or class. It has to prioritize the most urgent cases and distress. So this means that if you're in a shelter, the Red Cross isn't coming up to you to ask you where you were born. They're not going to ask you that. In a hospital, when that blood is there, it's going to be given according to need, not status. Because if that's the case, the poor would all die. Madam President, when they deliver food to the most vulnerable, they don't ask questions. Who you voting for? If you registered to vote, that's not what they're about. And this principle reflects on our values as Bahamians, the compassion, the fairness, the dignity by which the Bahamas Red Cross operates. And by putting these principles into Bahamian law, we reinforce that this kind of humanitarian support is not just charitable, it is lawful, it's principled, internationally recognized, and aligned with the highest global standards. And so, Madam President, let's remember the Red Cross. After Hurricane Dorian, the Red Cross mobilized regionally and along with international partners, and they stood with our people in their darkest hours, in Abaco, in Grand Bahama. They partnered with the last administration to bring stability to those residents, particularly on those 2 islands, Madam President. We forget these things. We politicize things. But the last administration was there during Dorian, and they worked side by side with the Red Cross to ensure that as quickly as possible, they'd be able to bring some stability to Abaco and Grand Bahama residents, and stability is relative. Stability isn't necessarily air conditioning or Netflix, Madam President, but it's to be able to not get wet, to have a meal, to be able to be warm and have dry clothing. Madam President, whether it's after a fire or even during COVID-19, 1.2 million passed through the Bahamas Red Cross to go to vulnerable populations through the feeding program. Madam President, they also delivered hygiene kits, public education, logistical support. I can't even imagine where we would have been without the Red Cross. Because you know what? Nobody knew what to do in a pandemic because we weren't alive for the last one. But even though the Red Cross may not have known what to do in a pandemic, they already had certain facilities in place. They already know how to operate and respond in times of crisis and disaster. And so they have the wherewithal, the knowledge base to be able to help guide. And we depend on that, Madam President. We don't even think twice, knowing the Red Cross is there. We drive past the headquarters, or we see the young school students in their Red Cross uniforms after school, and we know they had a ball on the weekend, they raised funds. Some people might choose to go, some people may not choose to go. But sometimes we don't think about the Red Cross until we need them. But they're there for us if we need them in a disaster or a crisis, but they're also there for us, like I said, every single day. They're in our neighborhoods, they're in our schools, okay? Like I said, by 11:30 every morning, people who genuinely cannot care for themselves have received meals through the Red Cross. These are real contributions that change lives every day in our country, Bahamian citizens and residents. And so this legislation isn't just a technical agreement, Madam President, it's transformative. Because guess what? We talk about 242 to the world. We're doing big things with the Bahamas Red Cross here today because they will be able to host a physical presence of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society. That's no small things, you know. That's nothing small. This is a little 21 by 7 piece of rock. And imagine you're going to have the IFRC here, used as a regional staging ground for the Americas, the Caribbean, and parts of Latin America. I want you all to know that's a big deal. And Madam President, this is one of the rare cases where I think we could all remember. I try to remember it every day, but this is one of the cases where we remember that aquamarine is the dominant color. Because this is something that everyone with a Bahamian passport should care about and should understand transcends partisan lines. So, Madam President, right here, we will be able to host a physical presence of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, right in the Bahamas. And that means that disaster supplies will be stored here, not overseas. They're here. And so that means response times will be dramatically faster. And that's a big deal, because I'll tell you, when moments count, it matters. We take time for granted, Madam President. You know, a minute sometimes, if you're rushing, you're trying to be late somewhere, that minute go by like that. Sometimes you're waiting on the microwave and you feel like this minute wouldn't pass, so you could hurry up, eat your popcorn or what it is in the microwave. That's just how my life felt last week. I was trapped in an elevator for 58 minutes. Now, 58 minutes mightn't seem like a lot of time. If you're watching an episode of somewhere, you're reading a book, or you in one of them meetings, what could have been an email or something like that. But, Madam President, when you're in an elevator and you feel like you run out of air, that's a long time. And, Madam President, when you're in a disaster, it matters that the IFRC here, it ain't somewhere else, it here, right in the Bahamas. And so the disaster supplies are stored here. The response time could be quicker. And the Bahamas becomes a regional leader in disaster management. That matters too. Okay, so the bill, you know, the amendment, it recognizes that the IFRC requires privileges and immunities to operate effectively. But crucially, Madam President, and very importantly, the Bahamas Red Cross must receive the same protections. And this bill ensures that it does. Madam President, also provides tax exemptions for essential humanitarian imports, removing the burden of duty and VAT, so resources can get to people more quickly, like I said, more efficiently, because every moment counts. And this legislation says to the world that the Bahamas is not only a recipient of aid, because people think, oh, you know, some countries, this happened, that happened, a hurricane come, let's send them stuff. No, we are now going to be a contributor to the global humanitarian work in an even more amplified way. It places our small nation on the global stage. It strengthens our capacity to really respond, not just here at home, but to contribute to humanitarian efforts abroad. And that matters, Madam President, because it puts us on the map as a nation that cares, a nation that gives, a nation that stands tall in solidarity with others. And Madam President, this bill strengthens accountability and transparency, as the Red Cross leadership has confirmed that they have completed all outstanding financial audits and are fully compliant with the IFRC and government requirements. Adding international standards, Madam President, through this legislation only strengthens governance. So it's not a blank check. It is a structured, responsible humanitarian framework. Now, Madam President, some may ask, why should I care? The Red Cross is us, Madam President. It is our sons, it is our daughters volunteering. It is our nurses and our doctors receiving support. It is our families, our neighbors, our friends receiving aid when disaster strikes. So to support the Bahamas Red Cross is to support ourselves. And we are duty-bound to strengthen them. Because in strengthening them, we are strengthening our nation. We are strengthening our commonwealth. And so this bill is a reflection of our values, Madam President, as a people. Resilience, solidarity, compassion is a reflection of our patriotism. Because true patriotism is not only waving the flag or wearing the flag, it is ensuring that our people are protected and prioritized, that they are cared for and uplifted. Madam President, we have always punched above our weight as a small island developing state. And so this bill is a continuance of that. Whether it's athletes on the world stage, Madam President, or artists and musicians who inspire globally, we have always punched above our weight. And now through this bill, we are sending a message that we are also leaders in humanitarian service. Imagine the pride of a Bahamian volunteer one day just working alongside colleagues from around the globe, wearing our flag on their chest, representing our nation in times of crisis. That is what this bill amendment makes possible. And Madam President, I would be remiss if I did not recognize the extraordinary leadership within our own Red Cross. Our past president, Therese Curry, now serves as chair of the IFRC's Audit and Risk Commission. That's one of the highest roles in global humanitarian governance, and she is a Bahamian. A Bahamian. Bahamian and proud, representing us on the world stage. And this is a source of pride that we must uplift, Madam President. I'll tell you my challenge in school. And it continues a little bit. Oh, I love our athletes. I think everyone knows I'm married to a phys ed instructor and coach. But Madam President, you know, when we are a national anthem, when we stand on that platform, when we get our medals, when we just cheering on our athletes, you know, we feel a certain way. And so we decide to do this for them, to do that, to memorialize them. But there are other people who achieve things, whether it's spelling, whether it's debate, whatever it is. Therese Curry, that's a big deal. And so we may think that, okay, well, you know, we can only frame or understand when someone gets a bronze or they may, no. Therese Curry, a Bahamian, I don't know where she was born and bred and grew up, okay? I don't know if she had a what else. I don't know her history or her story. All I know, she's a Bahamian. And all I know is the IFRC's Audit and Risk Commission is chaired by her. And that makes me proud. That makes me just as proud as some athlete or anyone else. That's a big deal. And Madam President, these are the things we recognize. We recognize the individual contribution, and we recognize where this amendment is taking us. 242 to the world. That's what this amendment is about. And we are capable. We are qualified. We are competent. We have the ability to do this. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes we don't realize how good we are at certain things. We believe we have to fly someone in. We have to call someone. We have to, get a consultant to say the same thing the person who could, on the side, who could have said long time. But, God forbid they have a different accent. Now all of a sudden, oh my God. But Madam President, we are capable. This bill isn't given the ability to do what we're doing to a group of people who aren't qualified or competent. These people ready. Look at them. They ready. And they pretty looking and handsome too. They smart. They talented. They capable. Okay? And they behaving. And Madam President, that's something we should beat our chest up about. We should beat our chest up about, Madam President. And so, Madam President, we are grateful to the Red Cross for continuing to stand with us in our darkest hour. And now is our time to stand with them. And I am so happy on their website it said they joined the IFRC in 1977. That was the year I was born. And I am so pleased, and I don't take for granted, to be a senator in this House and in this time to be a part of this legislation's passing. I am grateful to God and to the leader of the opposition for that opportunity, Madam President. And so I'm pleased and proud to support this legislation. Okay, and this bill isn't just about our votes later on, but it's about our hearts, sending a message that we stand with the vulnerable. They matter. People don't rate elderly people. They don't rate people with disabilities. But they rate them. They see them every day. People don't see them. Madam President, I was in a place the other day to take a very deep breath, because I watched somebody serve someone, and the person behind me was a very old lady. Had to be in the 80s. She said, my help was next. And she kept skipping the lady because I guess she was taking too slow or answering her. And I had to ask that lady if she's serious, Madam President. And I know how to remain cool and calm and collected and try to be diplomatic and have conversations, but in that moment, all my blood started to boil. I was like, you really going to keep skipping this lady at her age? So people don't rate elderly people in our society. The people with disabilities, if they're ahead of you, you feel like they're taking too long. Why you don't move out of the way of this cane or this wheelchair? You blocking me up. People don't even think about these people. But every single day you see the people there, those people are high on their priority list. They matter to them, and they reach out to them, and even more so after disaster or crisis. And so, Madam President, this bill is about the vulnerable, okay? And all of the volunteers, and every Bahamian, including me, who might one day need the help of the Bahamas Red Cross. And at that point, we don't have to worry about anything coming in because it's here. If something happens in the region or somewhere else, it's here. And that's a big deal. And so we are sending a message to the world today, Madam President, and we're making history. And I am very grateful to be a part of it. And I thank God for the Bahamas Red Cross, and I thank God for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Maxine Seymour, for your contribution. As many. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Dr. Eresia Hepburn Forbes.
Madam President, if you would permit me, I'd like to send birthday greetings out to Margaret Elizabeth and to Vary Dawson. I'd also like to remind all Bahamians that this is Heart Month, and one of our events this month is a Health and Wellness Fest being held Saturday the 7th at 10 a.m. at the University of the Bahamas. There's also a CPR and first aid training that will be free to all members of the public on February 15th from 7 to 6 p.m. at the Edmund Moxie Center. And please follow the Bahamas Heart Association Facebook page for more events and more activities, as there'll be a lot in this upcoming month. Now, Madam President, it is with a profound sense of duty, urgency, and heartfelt conviction to lend my full and unwavering support to the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025. This legislation is not just a mere procedural adjustment for me. As someone who has been a volunteer and continues to be a volunteer for over 2 decades at the Bahamas Red Cross, I can assure the general public that this amendment only solidifies the BRC with legal protection that is greatly needed. Madam President, this is important because the Bahamas Red Cross is far more than a charitable body. It is the cornerstone of resilience in our national landscape, a humanitarian force that has shaped the well-being of our communities since its earliest beginnings. From disaster response to daily acts of compassion, the Bahamas Red Cross touches lives in every corner of our archipelago. Madam President, one of the strongest pillars of the Bahamas Red Cross is the Disaster and Emergency Relief Assistance Program. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a member. But this program delivers wide-ranging support to community members who suffer loss through hurricanes, fires, and other devastating events. This assistance also extends to those facing hardships even outside disaster season. The Red Cross serves in an auxiliary role to the government of the Bahamas, supporting public authorities in their humanitarian tasks. This includes preparation, response, and recovery efforts in disaster management, and extends to health and social services that reinforce national safety nets. This unique partnership strengthens our nation's capacity to respond swiftly and effectively to emergencies. Madam President, the benefits of the Bahamas Red Cross reach far beyond disasters. Our Meals on Wheels program provide hot meals daily to shut-ins and individuals with physical challenges who cannot prepare food themselves. This program ensures that some of our most vulnerable residents continue to live with dignity, nourishment, and the human connection. The Society delivers welfare and emergency relief services alongside training in first aid, CPR, and disaster preparedness, along with psychosocial support. Annual food parcels further supplement families in need across our islands. Madam President, this bill is about giving our frontline humanitarian heroes the strength they need to save our lives. It is about ensuring that in our darkest hours, help does not face obstacles, but instead moves swiftly, compassionately, and powerfully to every person in need. For generations, the Bahamas Red Cross has been more than an institution. It has been a lifeline, a beacon, a silent guardian woven into the very soul of our national identity. Its volunteers and staff, ordinary men and women, have poured out extraordinary service, embodying humanity, impartiality, and unwavering devotion. Madam President, I volunteered with the Bahamas Red Cross during the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. We remember the images that broke our hearts. Entire communities were swept away, families separated, lives forever changed. For many, hope felt impossibly distant. But as we moved through the devastation, the reality that critical supplies were slowed by red tape, that essential personnel faced delays, that precious minutes that meant life or death, were lost to procedures never designed for catastrophic crisis, that hurt me, and it hurt the country. Those moments still haunt us because they remind us that even our heroes need support, structure, and the power of law behind them. Then, Madam President, before wounds could fully heal, the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe. Once again, the Bahamas Red Cross stepped into the breach, arming communities with information, training, personal protective equipment, aiding vaccination efforts, and bringing food and financial relief to families who did not know how they would survive another day. Madam President, this amendment allows our local and international Red Cross, Red Crescent movement the legal protection and flexibility we need to help our people when they need us the most. By granting essential immunities and privileges, we are clearing a path an open, unhindered humanitarian highway. We are saying to the Red Cross, when any major catastrophe comes again, we will not be slowed by obstacles. We will not let bureaucracy stand between Bahamas Red Cross and a life that still can be saved. These amendments to this bill ensures faster access to critical supplies so that the medicine, food, and shelters do not wait on the dock while families wait in fear. Rapid deployment of skilled humanitarian experts, because when help arrives quickly, hope arrives with it. Protection of the Red Cross operations so that every dollar, every vehicle, every resource remains safe and fully directed at saving lives. Strengthening our global partnerships, ensuring that the Bahamas can tap into the full might of the international humanitarian support when it matters the most. Madam President, this is not about privilege. This is about people, about saving lives, about assuring that no person is ever left to face a disaster alone. It is about honoring the memory of those we lost, protecting those that we love, and securing the future of generations yet to come. By passing this bill, we join the global community in embracing best practices that uphold humanity and compassion. We reinforce our moral duty to act, to prepare, and to protect. Most importantly, we send a powerful message to the people of the Bahamas. When crisis comes, your government and your Red Cross will be ready, a partner we cannot do without. The continued partnership between the government and the Red Cross ensures better coordinated humanitarian aid, improved resource mobilization, stronger first aid training, and enhanced support for vulnerable communities. This cooperative framework maximizes the impact of every service delivered and reinforces the social safety net upon which thousands rely. The cost of doing nothing is too painful to imagine. The cost of delay can be measured in lives. Let us then choose preparedness. Let us choose humanity. Let us choose to ensure that when the winds of adversity blow again, the Bahamas will not stand fearful, but fortified, not broken, but resilient. In conclusion, Madam President, the Bahamas Red Cross is not just a support organization. It is a pillar of hope, resilience, and compassion. Its programs reach our seniors, our children, in our family islands. We have 17 branches, our disaster survivors, and our future generations. The Bahamas Red Cross feeds the hungry, trains the unprepared, shelters the displaced, uplifts the vulnerable, and strengthens our nation. Madam President, this amendment alone will not ensure the longevity and productivity of the Bahamas Red Cross. This is an organization that cannot function without you. As Senator Seymour stated just now, we have persons doing a yeoman's task. But who will be the next Therese Curry? We need more people to volunteer and step up. We need volunteers who can offer not just time, but heart, not just service, but sacrifice. We cannot do it without you. We want people not just with effort, but for a love for your country and its people. Therefore, I urge every honorable member in this upper house to rise above partisanship and stand united. Let us pass this bill not as separate voices, but as one Bahamas, strong, compassionate, and resolute. May God bless us, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Dr. Eureka Hepburn Forbes. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Barnett Ellis.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Michael Barnett Ellis, you have the floor. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam
You're welcome.
President. This has been an exciting and consequential week in Bahamian politics. Both major parties are finalizing their candidate slates, and the country is once again being asked to engage seriously in the democratic process. Yet, alongside that activity, Madam President, we must confront a troubling and persistent reality: voter apathy. Too many Bahamians feel unheard, overlooked, or unconvinced that participation leads to real change. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when governance feels disconnected from daily life, when people struggle to access health care, when frontline workers are pushed to breaking point, and when decisions appear to be reactive instead of planned. It also happens when leadership shows up loudly in election season, but too quietly in moments when communities need consistent advocacy and follow through. A number of us in this chamber have entered the electoral arena. Some of us for the first time, others as veterans. And when it comes to a heightened responsibility to demonstrate that a vote is not just a courtesy to politicians, but a voice that must be respected through competent, responsible governance that listens to the will of the people. It is against that backdrop, Madam President, that I rise to make a contribution on the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025. And I do so against the reality of a public health care system that is not merely strained, but mismanaged. On its face, this bill seeks to modernize the legal footing of the Bahamas Red Cross Society and to regularize the status of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies by extending immunities and privileges under the International Organization's Immunities and Privileges Act, pursuant to an agreement signed on the 20th of September 2022. And I thank the members of the Red Cross Society, our local Red Cross Society, for joining us in the Senate today. I hope that we have at least been entertaining. From its earliest origins, the Red Cross movement has been deeply rooted in healthcare, born out of battlefield medicine, emergency nursing, and an imperative to care for the wounded when systems collapse under the strain of conflict. Over time, that mission evolved into an organized humanitarian healthcare, including emergency medical care, nursing support, blood services, disease prevention, and community health education. That story explains why, in the moments of turmoil, Red Cross societies around the world are so often trusted to step in quickly and professionally to protect life, health, and human dignity. There is nothing controversial about supporting humanitarian work. The Red Cross movement is one of the most respected humanitarian institutions in the world. And in a small, hurricane-prone country like ours, their presence is vital. But Madam President, context matters. And the context today is one of government failure in public health care. Just last week, nurses across the country were driven to the point of sick-out, not because they're unreasonable, not because they're uncommitted, but because they are overworked, under-supported, and operating in a system that has been allowed to deteriorate under this administration's watch. After public pressure and disruption to patient care, the government promised to pay the overtime arrears. And that raises a simple and unavoidable question. Where did the money suddenly come from? And if the funds exist today, why were they not properly budgeted for in the first place? Why did it take a crisis, a sick-out, and public embarrassment for the government to do what competent governance requires? plan realistically for staffing needs in a strained healthcare system. Madam President, this is not compassionate leadership. It is reactive governance. And it is precisely why Bahamians are losing confidence in the system. This overtime issue is not isolated. It's emblematic of an administration that governs by reaction instead of responsibility. A proactive government, one that genuinely cares, would have known the problems. It would have planned for them. It would have budgeted for them. It would not require a sick-out, public outrage, and disruption to patient care before acting. This is, after all, the same administration that claimed to be clueless about the lack of fire trucks and ambulances, critical emergency assets in the country constantly at risk. And it's the same administration that has taken almost an entire term to complete the work at the A&E at Princess Margaret Hospital. Yes, Madam President, when political expediency demands it, money suddenly appears. This government could easily find millions to pave roads and carry out other works in Golden Isles during the by-election, only to stop right after the election was finished. It found money to house and feed cabinet ministers and officials in Grand Bahama for a public relations exercise that ultimately blew up in their faces. So let's not pretend that the issue is a lack of resources. The issue is priorities. The issue is planning. The issue is governance. Healthcare workers are told to endure, improvise, and wait while political projects are fast-tracked and generously funded. And when people see that contrast, Madam President, it is no surprise that trust erodes, frustration deepens, and voter apathy grows. Madam President, the dysfunction of our public healthcare system is not abstract. It is physical, it is visible, and in some cases, it is literally unbearable. We've all heard the reports confirmed by staff and experienced by patients of the smell emanating from the morgue at our principal public hospital. That is not a minor inconvenience. That is a dignity issue. That is a public health issue, and it is a sign of neglect. At the same time, the hospital kitchen remains non-functional. In a facility tasked with healing the sick, we cannot even consistently prepare meals on site. In Exuma, nurses and staff were forced to fill buckets just to flush toilets. Things do happen, but that is unacceptable. That is not resilience, that is neglect. It is precisely because of these failures that the presence of organizations like the Red Cross becomes even more critical. Humanitarian organizations are meant to complement a strong public healthcare system, not quietly prepare to supplement one that is failing. Yet, here we are. When hospitals are overwhelmed, when staff are burnt out, and when emergency preparedness is thin, it is organizations like the Red Cross that step in, providing first aid training, psychosocial support, emergency responses, blood donation mobilization, and disaster readiness. Madam President, thank goodness for the Red Cross in the Bahamas, because under this administration, we may increasingly need them not only for hurricanes, but to help fill gaps left by poor planning and mismanagement in public health care. But I do have a concern, Madam President. The operative clause of this bill extends immunities under the International Organization's Immunities and Privileges Act. Madam President, if you...
Senators, we have a senator on the floor. Order. Thank you.
So, sorry again. Madam President, I do have a concern. The operative clause in this bill extends immunities under the International Organizations and Immunities and Privileges Act. This is a serious step, and it requires answers. What are the immunities we are embodying into law? And why are we being asked to accept them without having sight of them? Are these immunities functional, or are they overly broad? And what protection does the ordinary Bahamian have if the dispute arises? Is there a waiver mechanism? And what oversight accompanies these privileges? Madam President, immunities cannot become a substitute for accountability, particularly in a country where some administrations, let me be frank, PLP administrations treat accountability as an unnecessary luxury. During my tenure in this honorable place, we have passed legislation touted as demonstrating a commitment to accountability and no tolerance for corruption. But though they have been enacted, they have yet.
Senators, we have a senator on the floor. Thank you.
During my tenure in this honorable place, we have passed legislation touted as demonstrating a commitment to accountability, to no tolerance for corruption. But although they've been enacted, they have yet to come into force. When are we bringing into force the Ombudsman Act? It's almost 2 years later. The Protected Disclosures Act and the Independent Commission of Investigations Act, they're now nearly a year outstanding. This administration treats accountability as something that can be placed on a shelf to collect dust. This bill invites us to reflect on how humanitarian organizations and the state should work in tandem, each fulfilling its role effectively, without one having to compensate for the other. Our healthcare system is in shambles because this administration does not plan, it reacts. It does not budget properly for healthcare realities. It does not listen until workers reach a breaking point. It does not act until public pressure leaves it with no choice. And then, suddenly, the money appears. This is not sound governance. That is crisis management masquerading as leadership. So yes, Madam President, I support the role of the Red Cross and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. I support enabling humanitarian partners to function effectively. I support this bill. But I will not allow this bill to pass without saying plainly, Madam President, I am thankful that the Red Cross exists, but I hope that we never need all that they are prepared to provide, because that would be the clearest sign of governance failure, and the Bahamian people deserve better. Madam President, may God continue to bless our sunny clime.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. As many. The chair.
Thank you very much.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Randy Rowe.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Pleasant good afternoon. I want to also say my regards to those in the gallery, my good friend, Mr. Sumner, and all of those. I rise, Madam President, to be extremely brief, but to also to support this bill that's before us. It's interesting, Madam President, listening to my colleague before, and how do you take such a bill that's such milestone and speak such political rhetoric. But, you know, the Bahamian people understand the importance of it. Certainly the Red Cross understands the timing of it, and the fact that this is a government that supports progress and continued progress, Madam President, speaks to the leadership of the Davis administration. A couple of points, Madam President. First of all, the protection of humanitarian and the operation of safeguarding its assets and funds, Madam President, is legendary and certainly one that's timing. Madam President, as the chairman of the Consumer Protection Protection Commission, certainly, you know, it is important that we work hand in hand with powers such as the Red Cross and other institutions, Madam President, that allows for such a legendary bill. Madam President, yeah, I will get to that in a second. Madam President, one of the things that I want to touch on, Madam President, is the fact that this leaves no man behind and the importance of what that actually means. And looking at it and speaking to my colleague just now, Madam President, I note the areas and the islands that are all protected and have the presence of the Red Cross. I think, Madam President, that is super important when you look at Grand Bahama, Abaco, Exuma, the Berry Islands, Bimini, and so much more, Madam President. This is good. Just yesterday, Madam President, talking about Bimini, we had a fire that was caused because I think there was a pole that came down because of the wind and the weather, Madam President. And the interesting thing about it is the buildings are so close together, Madam President. We was able to be saved because there could have been a major disaster, Madam President. And the fact that, you know, I want to congratulate and thank the team of individuals in Bimini who would have acted swiftly. I want to thank Mervyn and his team at the airport, who was able to, Mervyn Sanders and the others, Madam President, who were able to act swiftly, make some quick calls, go and was able to mobilize a fire truck over to the mainland to, again, create and stop what could have been a major disaster. It's things such as this and reasons such as this, Madam President, that we understand the importance of the Red Cross and we find an appreciation for it. Madam President, I remember, you know, I never knew why I did it, but every holiday season I'm a part of the members of Kappa Alpha Psi, and the one time that I make sure and show up, Madam President, is when it's time to ring the bell. And that's Salvation Army, okay. And then we look at some of the other charity events. I think it's Friday, Saturday, when they had the Red Cross ball, was it? Yeah. Right. And so it's good when you have events such as that, Madam President, but I think that, you know, it is time that the corporate Bahamas steps up and try to find more ways in which we can be a support to the Red Cross, Madam President, because the job that they do is super important and we need them and we want to be able to support in any way, Madam President. So when I look at how we can do these things, Madam President, I want to, with the Consumer Protection Commission that's responsible for safeguarding the interests of Bahamians, find a way to work closer with the Red Cross and what they do. So, Madam President, I want to commend your team for the work that you do, for the stance that you take in protecting the entire country. I believe that this bill is timely. I believe that this bill is important. I heard one of my colleagues talk about stepping forward in disaster, and Madam President, I remember when, you know, I remember when the government, the former government was in place, Madam President. They looked to a family to support some feeding program. Yeah. You know, and I think that, I don't know if they forgot, but they looked to a family to oversee a feeding program, Madam President, when the Red Cross has been doing it and doing it very great, Madam President. And so, in case they forget, Madam President, in case they forget, Madam President. Yes, they put them in charge.
Order. Order.
They forget, Madam President.
Order.
This is where.
Order. Order. Senator. Hold on. Order.
Madam President,
Please proceed.
the proof is in the pudding. In times of emergency, in times of disaster, we knew where they looked. We knew who they partnered with, when it should have been at a greater cause, that of the Red Cross. And so, Madam President, this government has decided that we're not just going to talk it. We're going to move with action. We're going to speak to it. We're going to put something in place. And we're going to put something in place that will benefit the entire Bahamas. And so I want to congratulate this government for our stance that we took on this bill, Madam President. Again, leaving no island behind, leaving nobody behind. This is a great bill, Madam President. I just wanted to say I support it. I thank the government for our stance on it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Randy Roll, for your contribution. As many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate to continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the Senate will continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Raming.
Thank you, Madam President, and Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you, Red Cross. Thank you for all you NGOs and churches, the Samaritans that define the character of our nations even when governments fall short. You know, the Bible says the poor will always be with you, and I always wonder why. Because without the needy and the downtrodden, there's no proof of character in the majority that have sufficient. So as long as the poor and the needy and the distraught and the hurt is there, is the commendation and condemnation to all of us from our actions towards them. So when the Red Cross and other NGOs act, they move beyond being an organization to being an organism with character and soul. In law, a company is a type of a person, and it is used to shelter the individuals from liabilities on their individual personhood to their corporate personhood. NGOs such as the Red Cross and others are beyond that. Though they are corporate entities in which the support of this bill helped to reinforce, it still at its essence has its personhood. The Red Cross and other NGOs are able to circumnavigate and infiltrate situations that even those with official power find themselves limited. And that is because of their prime directive, which affords them a neutrality because they don't care about man based upon their sex or origin or the color of their skin or the level of their education or the size of their wallet. They just care for humanity. So they shed off the political classhood, the wealth classhood. They shed all that off. They don't care of the fact that this one is trying to kill the other one. All they care about is how can we all get along. And because of that, we learn a valuable lesson about character that our children should know. Though they may design vests that makes us bulletproof and they provide vehicles that protects us and even tanks on the battlefield. Wearing a symbol that touches the heart of people and represents a character is your greatest protection. So much so when in the heat of battle, conflicting forces come together, someone with a red cross on their band could go and move between the firing lines, and on both sides they know that we should not attack this person because if any of us are in need, they will stop what they're doing, they will help left, and they will help right equally. That's character. That's God. He makes it rain on the just and the unjust. That is the thing that seeds our nation and makes us strong. The Archbishop spoke about the imbalance in our law system, how it seems like those who have access seem to have a great privilege opposed to those who don't. I find myself with this bill stirred in my spirit and perplexed and anger because there's something I understand, Madam President, and there's something I agree with. That a good name is better than riches. I learned that as a young man, you know. And that's why it humbles my spirit because, boy, when you don't have it, your character will open doors when your pocket is empty. A good name is much preferred than riches. Madam President, when I look at the work that these NGOs do and the over 1,000+ volunteers who step up and step out from all classes, who I see on the assembly line and food distribution and clothing distribution of all classes, all stratas. When I think about the over 90 million+ persons around the world who associate with the NGO and the countless others who associate with churches and just sheer good Samaritans. And then when I think about the preamble of our Constitution, Madam President, which says we will have an abiding respect for Christian values, and when you look at these entities, whether they call themselves religious or not, they are living the golden rule. Do unto others as you'll have them do unto you. Madam President, I've served in the lower house, and I've served in the upper house. I've even lived long enough to know what it is to sit in an outhouse. So I don't hang my coat on the temporary titles that can be taken. When I was in the lower house, while in the house, the MP is called honorable. When he's out, he's not. Only a cabinet minister is. In the Senate, as a senator, I'm called honorable in this house, and even outside this house, I should be addressed as honorable. But while in the outhouse with my grandma with the wooden floor, she taught me that honor is something that you give and something that you do. And it is earned by knowing how to treat others the way you expect to be treated. My Uncle Eddie was a carpenter, and he taught me something. He said, Ruben, when building, it's always better to measure twice so you can cut once. Sometimes repairs could be expensive. I know what it is to be dragged by my parents and told that, Ruben, you need to apologize when I find myself doing something wrong. I learned, too, that in my services in the format of church and NGOs, that a statement is true: in times of peace, prepare for war. And I also learned that the success I will have tomorrow, or the contribution that I will have tomorrow, is based upon the success I had yesterday, the quality of that success. I've learned, and I classify the Red Cross and their success that has been throughout the years, that yes, donations comes in the midst of calamity, but their preparation comes from the credibility of the success they had in the last. The success that they had in the last calamity starts to build the straw house of readiness, while the emergency ones comes in during the calamity. Because in times of peace, it is their credit that causes people to have a heart to want to give. So although we pass legislations and we pass everything, the most sacred and valuable thing that all NGOs have is their one good name. You know, in life, a lot of things are very, very interesting, you know. You can have a Jones on the street call you something, and it will go off people's back. But when you have people with title and status and credibility calls you something, it sticks. So we got to be careful how we approach things in life. I get concerned because when I look at it, I have to think twice about everybody's action, because I don't like when I'm misrepresented. We're passing a bill that is endorsed by the state, endorsed by the government, and endorsed by me, that celebrates the many achievements as stated before. The credit of the Red Cross is based upon the fact that they have a culture of accountability that every government in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and many in the world, should look at with envy. Then donations comes in, they know that their name, their reputation, and their accountability is the determining factor, even more than the calamity, of their ability to serve out their purpose. Because if you cannot trust an organization and you want to give, you'll find someone who you can trust to give. So when we have a hand that comes to us in the midst of storms, and when we have bodies that will stand up in the midst of plagues, and when we have persons that will come in the midst of our pain, when you have people that will put their reputations on the line, when we have wealthy families who may not be on the ground but will call up their friends and use their leverage to be able to bring forth the funds in the hands of people they can trust to do the need, we got to be careful. We can pass legislations that seem to support and actually do support the structure of the organization, but an organization without a representation of their character is but a shell. It has no life. It's almost like FTX. FTX, everybody wanted to give to FTX. As soon as they realized that Sam Bankman-Fried was who he is, then it all collapsed, because no matter how good the scheme was on paper, when the character of the leadership was compromised, that's how government comes in and out. We say nation for sale. We say matter of trust. We say, you know, all kinds of things to undermine. So here it is now. We are here celebrating, and rightfully so, passing this bill and the amendment that enhances the Red Cross. But to this very day, I am still grieved to my bones that our nation attacked the very entities that we know we need historically, prophetically, and immediately. The people who have come to our aid and does not have the fortitude of character, Madam President, to apologize. It still grieves me to this day that we have, even just before me with Senator Randy, as he is right now, I'm seeking a candidacy for Bimini. And still lambasting persons who came to the aid of the Bahamian people, while he at the same time trying to celebrate those who come to the aid of the fire, who have been wrongly maligned and misrepresented. I have a problem with that. And I ain't talking FNM and PLP, man, listen, your life better than all this, because when we stand before where we go in Christ, ain't none of your party can help none of us. It is wrong. It is wrong when the seat of power in the person of our prime minister stands up and maligns an organization and has not even used his tools to measure twice before you cut. I speak for myself, but I speak because this is true. Had Edison Sumner or anybody else been in charge of the food task force, it would have been just as wrong for them to have been treated and thrown in, as the Holocaust would have been treated, regardless of what you think of them. It could have been Prophet Roll, it could have been Walter Hanchel. See, because when we do something, see, when a prime minister speaks, you got to realize that's policy. You don't speak lightly as no prime minister, that's policy. When the president of the United States speaks, that's policy. And that could only be retracted about him. That's the disposition of the government towards that thing he spoke. And when you stand there and you malign with all your confidence in the House, the NGOs and the churches and those who are part of that food task force, of which the Red Cross themselves was in charge of the whole southern region and the whole northern Bahamas, that's a problem. I stood behind the prime minister when I was in the lower house. And I've witnessed, just as in here, anytime your honor get offended, even in the most petty way, you jump up on a point of privilege. Or you ask for the president, or some strike that from the record. But yet in our honorable house, still on the record of this country, the Hansard of this country, the Bible of this country, man. You get these NGOs as crooks. And the only way it could be expunged and reversed is for our prime minister do the honorable thing. His very own auditor, the auditor established under Constitution, has vindicated these organizations, but yet the head of our state has not yet on record be brave and honorable. This ain't political, and I'm cautious because I don't want to stroke his ego. I'm not want to stark his anger, or as the chaplain said, stroke the ego. I'm appealing to his humanity, brother. Mr. Prime Minister, you don't like it when it happens to you. You stand on a point of order. You actually go to a committee of privilege. You said strike it from the record. Strike it from the record. Your records prove you wrong. Man, that's a character flaw, man.
You won't strike it?
That is, listen,
Yeah.
you can't go on a public purse and malign a person's character than pick up a private phone call, and I'm not saying he do this, and apologize privately. What is done publicly must be settled publicly. That's character. What are we showing our young people? And you run them through a level of investigation and embarrassment. We had criminals that hadn't even gone through that level of scrutiny. And I must be satisfied with this good and necessary amendment alone. You know, I have done, you know, ever heard of battered wife syndrome, where the husband feel, or the spouse feel that he could abuse the woman because he get mad, and then all of a sudden he goes out and buy one roses, or buy one this, or buy her a new car and say, honey, I like you, and she goes to work with the bruises, see what's my husband buying? The eye has the big black eye. We cannot be, listen, Mr. Prime Minister, this cannot stand, sir. This is a character issue. I've said before, the success of an organization in preparation for the next calamity, the success of their contribution comes in based on the success of their last exploit. This was a greatest combination of calamity in the modern history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. A time when it should have exposed our greatest heroes. A time when the conduct of those who sacrifice themselves and jet skis and tractors and give up their clothing and their food and their time and their money should have been an example for the next go. And to this day, the leader of our country is on record saying they anything but honorable. That cannot, listen, all I'm saying, no, what you like for you, do to somebody else. You would not allow it to stand on this record in this house, so why is it standing in the House of Assembly? This bill made it all the way to the Senate, and nobody had the decency, man, this ain't about your politics, man. When the Red Cross come down the line, it can help F&M and it can help PLP. And it ain't gonna ask you for no voter ID. Our churches are NGOs. A good name is better than riches. I thank God, you know, that despite thereof, there has been enough of a service record and internal and international accountability that the international community still respect our own Red Cross functioning to do what they do. You know what the Bible says? A prophet is without honor in his own home. They come in here out of respect, and we still ain't have the decency to say, on the record, we're sorry, our NGOs has functioned well in this country. Man, that's courage. That's being brave. And I can sit here, you know, though I appreciate and I support this bill, I commend the government on this bill, but my heart is grieved because it's hypocrisy, man. Y'all, when you're going to your caucus, you think about it, the only one who could undo this now, you know, it's the Prime Minister himself. He said this, nobody forced him. He's a QC, he understands. Man, these people who reputation they bring to bear on these organizations get called crooks and scandalous and accused of stealing from poor people in the time. What could be more denigrating than that? This ain't no joke. And you calling them by name and by association, everybody who had a part of that task force. Mr. Alkidish, you need to talk to the Prime Minister, Mr. AG. When you come back here, you all need to talk. You all need to make sure, and only he could do this. See, some people just think some things is petty, but I know one thing. You could accuse a man of rape. He could get his so-called name clear and win a settlement. but he is still labeled. That is in the record. I commend everyone for the sacrifice they did. I commend people who had enough clout and character when the Bahamas couldn't get vaccine. Some people get better connection than the government themselves, that they can make a call that the government could not make and get help for the Bahamas. But you complain about them because their family connection, their connection been saving this country. Just because you don't like them because they're PLP or F&M. Because they had a college buddy who's now in charge of some large something somewhere, and they could call their friend who everybody else has to make an appointment for and say, my country need, and be spitting in their faces. And that is still on the record today, and not a single one of you will stand up and do that. The only thing grieved me is that I don't have the authority to apologize for the Prime Minister.
Yes, you can.
But in as much as Reuben is a part of this collective government, I am sorry.
Yes, you can. Apologize for him. Apologize for him. Tell him you're sorry.
Mr. Sumner is not the leader of the Red Cross because he's the smartest tool in the drawer. He's one of the smartest people, but he's not the. He is there because of his character, and his value is consistent with that organization. And if his character and value and his reputation is not consistent, he must leave for the organization to survive. So I cannot take the insult on anyone's character lightly. I cannot take an insult against my Prime Minister lightly.
No, I won't stand for it.
Because he represents me.
Yes.
Despite being a PLP.
My Prime Minister.
I cannot take an assault on the character of my president.
No.
Because she is the leader of this Senate. And if she look bad, I look bad.
Come on now.
But if she says something, I will not be quiet. I will stand up and register my objection, even though I don't have the authority to cancel what she says. And all of you sit in that house, and not a one of you distance yourself from the fact that the same people we had in the last storm are going to be the same group of people they're going to need in the next storm. And they got to look beyond their pain to serve their country again. Mr. Prime Minister, go on record, because it's a matter of heart. It's a matter of character. It is the issue of right and wrong. Your evidence and your record is against you. And restore on the record of this country the honor of these people. And when we celebrate them for what they will do to elevate our country in disaster preparedness, help for the poor and the dying and the sick, let's do it in the spirit of reconciliation. Not with people who are on the outside looking and saying, yeah, you're celebrating them, but you think they're a bunch of. Madam President, with that, I stand in support of this bill. But I hope we as senators, not in a private phone call, acknowledge that as the auditor report said, those same people were more accountable than virtually every government agency in this country. Actually, you know what? Y'all need to go and learn from these NGOs how to be accountable for money.
The Red Cross, best record financial keeping.
If we can't sit there and humble ourselves as leaders, the Bible says and is taught that if you want to lead, you need to learn to be a follower. If you could expect followers to apologize, then you need to be there to apologize. And this is not a maligning against the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
No.
Because any Prime Minister that is in represents me and represents we.
All of it.
But no one has the right, no one has the right to unjustly and have persons in here running on with that foolishness, malign the character of proven and established. And I would end on this point. Even if an organization or a person have been serving you faithfully for decades and made a mistake, Where is the grace to say, you have been good 10 times? I could at least this time say, you know what? It was an error. I mean, not even the decency to say, man, your record is so strong, we ain't throwing you in the garbage. Every political party has been jacking up. We're coming into election right now, and you're all asking for mercy. And you've done a lot of foolishness, but you don't want to apply that to somebody else? You know what? I didn't come in politics to lose myself or to lose my character. And I invite everyone who come into politics to realize you don't lose your character over your flags and whatever else. We are here for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and we are here under God. We're here to serve our people. We all have to have a conscience, man. With that, I commend this administration for passing this bill. I commend the administration led by Prime Minister Davis for the empowerment that is in this bill. I commend, although this is specifically the Red Cross, specifically them for what they have done to further put the Bahamas on the map. I commend all of those who are being given in service to those all around our country. And with that, Madam President, I sincerely support this bill.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming, for your contribution. As many.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I arrive for a brief wrap-up before we formally move for the second reading of the bill. I want to thank all senators for their contributions. Very passionate and insightful. And there was one point I wanted to address, Madam President, the issue raised by Senator Barnett Ellis in relation to the immunities, privileges and immunities that are being that this amendment allows to be extended to the Bahamas Society of the Red Cross. The amendment, Madam President, references the bill references the international organizations' immunities and privileges of certain officers bill, Madam President. And what it does essentially is, under that act, there are certain international organizations that are recognized by name, for example, the United Nations, UNESCO, and that is an act from 1963. It recognizes certain organizations, and in the bill, it provides for any organization with which the government of the Bahamas enters into an agreement. It allows for certain immunities and privileges to be bestowed upon them by order of the Governor General. It allows as well for those immunities and privileges to be extended to the husband and wife of individuals to whom these were extended. And specifically, it allows for there to be a certain period of time for those to be withdrawn, etc. And the privilege that are laid out in the act are immunity from legal process in respects of all words spoken or written and all acts performed by the officer in its official capacity, and the privilege of importing furniture and effects free of all duties of customs levied under the Tariff Act, Stamp Act, or any other act amending or replacing those acts. So in our context, it's hard to envision immunity from prosecution, but perhaps in other countries, immunity from prosecution. So those immunities that are specifically laid out in the Immunities and Privileges Act. Otherwise, Madam President, I think there was widespread support for this legislation that will strengthen the operation of the Red Cross, and so I move for second reading and committal of the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act.
For the second reading of bills,
And none, Madam President.
Committee of the Whole.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President, Senator Griffin, in the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Say nay. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2025, a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye. Aye. Those who are opposed say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that Madam President do take the chair.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto.
Honorable members, the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bills, having made no amendments thereto. Senators, we're still in the Senate proceedings. I would appreciate if you would follow along. Thank you. Thank you, Senators. Third reading and passing of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Red Cross Society Act.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2026. The Bahamas Red Cross Society Amendment Act 2026. For the third reading of bills,
Madam President,
consideration of House amendments, resolutions, discharge of select committees, notices for future meetings,
renew all notices in the name of the government, Madam President.
orders for clerk, adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn until Thursday, the 5th of February at 12 noon.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate adjourn until Thursday, the 5th of February, 12 noon. As many are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The Senate stands adjourned to Thursday, the 5th of February, 12 noon.